do with how you think about money. But let's go even deeper than that, because the real trap, the one most people never see, isn't just a mindset problem. It's a system that was never designed to explain itself to you. Think about the story most of us were handed growing up. Study hard, get a good job, work your way up, save a little, spend a little, and eventually, if you're disciplined enough, comfortable enough, patient enough, it all works out. It's a clean story, a reassuring one, and for a certain generation, in a certain economy, it even worked. But here's the uncomfortable truth nobody puts on a motivational poster. That story is now one of the most financially dangerous beliefs a person can carry. Not because hard work doesn't matter. It does. But hard work is not a wealth strategy. It's a survival strategy. And there's a massive difference between the two. The people who actually build wealth, not just income, but real, lasting, generational wealth, they're not necessarily working harder than you. In many cases, they're working differently. They've figured out something that most people spend their entire lives one paycheck away from figuring out, and it has almost nothing to do with math. That's the first thing that catches people off guard. We tend to think of financial failure as a numbers problem. Not enough income, too many expenses, wrong budget. So we chase the numbers. We look for a higher salary, a side hustle, a better spreadsheet, and none of it sticks. Because the real problem isn't mathematical, it's behavioral, it's psychological. It lives in the gap between what you know you should do and what you actually do when the pressure is on, when the opportunity shows up, when the status game starts pulling at you. Researchers in behavioral economics have spent decades documenting this gap, and what they've found, over and over again, is that people don't make financial decisions based on logic. They make them based on identity, based on fear, based on what they believe they deserve, what they believe is possible, and what they believe other people expect of them. The numbers come after. The psychology comes first. So if the problem is psychological, then what is the system doing while all of this is playing out in your head? Here's where it gets interesting. The wealth gap in most modern economies isn't random. It isn't just the result of some people making smarter choices than others. It's structural. The system, and I'm not saying this to make you feel powerless. I'm saying it because understanding the system is the first step to navigating it. The system rewards three things above almost everything else: ownership, leverage, and long-term positioning. Ownership means you benefit when an asset grows, not just when you show up. Leverage means your money, or your systems, or other people's effort is working even when you're not. Long-term positioning means you've placed yourself somewhere that gets more valuable over time, not just more comfortable. And here's the quiet reality. Most people are never taught to think in any of these terms. They're taught to trade time for money and to do it reliably and to feel grateful for the stability of it, which isn't wrong, but it also isn't a path to wealth. And while that's happening in the background, something even more insidious is happening in the foreground. The appearance of success. We live in a world that has made it incredibly easy to look wealthy without becoming wealthy. The car on a 7-year loan, the apartment that stretches the budget because the address sounds impressive, the wardrobe, the trips, the dinners, all of it curated, all of it signaling something that the bank account doesn't actually reflect. And this isn't vanity. Well, sometimes it is, but mostly it's something more human than that. It's the need to feel like you're moving forward, like the work is paying off, like you belong in the room you're trying to get into. The problem is that every dollar spent performing wealth is a dollar that isn't building it. And this is where lifestyle inflation enters the picture, quietly, almost invisibly, like a slow leak in a tire. You get a raise. Fantastic. But then the apartment gets upgraded. The car gets upgraded. The weekends get more expensive. The subscriptions multiply. And 6 months later, you're earning more than you ever have. And somehow you feel exactly as financially stressed as you did before. Sound familiar? Lifestyle inflation doesn't feel like a trap when you're in it. It feels like progress. It feels like reward. It feels like you've finally earned the right to live a certain way. But what it's actually doing is silently canceling every income gain you make, resetting the clock every time you level up, and keeping the gap between what you earn and what you keep exactly as wide as it's always been. Now here's the tension that sits at the center of all of this, and it's one we're going to come back to throughout this video, because it's easy to look at the system and feel like the deck is stacked, and in some ways it is. There are real structural inequalities that make this harder for some people than others, and pretending otherwise isn't honesty. It's just comfort. And this is the part that actually matters. The system being imperfect doesn't mean your choices don't matter. They matter enormously. The research is clear on this. The behaviors, the psychology, the beliefs you carry about money, they either work with the system's mechanics or against them. And most people, without ever being told, are unknowingly working against them every single day. That's the trap. And the first step out of it is simply seeing it clearly. So let's get specific. Because at this point, you might be nodding along, thinking, yes, I get it. The system, the psychology, the trap. But what does that actually look like in my life? On a Tuesday, when I'm making real decisions with real money? It looks like this. You get paid. And before that money has a chance to become anything, before it has a chance to grow, compound, or work, it gets allocated. Not always consciously, not always dramatically, but consistently. And the categories it gets allocated to tell you almost everything you need to know about where someone's financial life is headed. There are 3 spending patterns that quietly destroy wealth building before it ever starts. The first is status spending, buying things not because they serve you, but because they signal something to other people. The second is convenience spending, the subscriptions, the delivery fees, the shortcuts that feel small individually, but stack into something significant. And the third is short-term dopamine purchases, the impulse buys, the retail therapy, the I deserve this moments that feel like self-care, but function like financial self-sabotage. None of these are inherently evil. All of them are deeply human, but all of them share one trait. They convert future potential into present comfort, and they do it so smoothly you barely notice. And here's where lifestyle inflation becomes the real villain of this story. Because the insidious thing about it isn't that it happens when you're struggling. It happens when you're succeeding. You earn more, so you spend more. The baseline shifts, the new normal costs more, and the gap between your income and your wealth, the only gap that actually matters, stays exactly the same or gets wider. Think about two people who both get a significant raise. One of them upgrades their life to match their new income within a few months. New rent, nicer car, better restaurants. The lifestyle catches up to the paycheck almost immediately. The other one pauses, not because they're miserable or depriving themselves, but because they've made a decision about where that extra money is going to go before the lifestyle has a chance to absorb it. 5 years later, the first person is more comfortable. The second person is quietly building something. The difference isn't discipline in the traditional white-knuckle sense. The difference is priority. And priority is almost always a reflection of identity. Here's the mindset shift that most financial content completely misses. There are two types of people when it comes to money: consumers of signals and builders of assets. And the split isn't about income level. It's not about education or background or even opportunity, at least not entirely. It's about what role you've decided money plays in your life. Consumers of signals use money to communicate, to say something about who they are, where they belong, how far they've come. Builders of assets use money as a tool to create more options, more leverage, more future. Both are using money. Only one is building wealth. And this is where identity comes in, because your relationship with money isn't just a habit. It's a story you tell about yourself. Your self-image determines almost everything: your risk tolerance, your saving behavior, your willingness to delay gratification, your comfort with investing in things that don't pay off immediately. If you see yourself as someone who works hard and deserves to enjoy the fruits of that work right now, you will consistently make decisions that reflect that belief. If you see yourself as someone who is building something, who is an owner, not just an earner, you will make a different set of decisions, naturally, almost automatically, because the decisions flow from the identity. This is why two people can read the exact same financial advice and get completely different results. The information was the same, but the identity that received it was different. One person absorbed it intellectually and moved on. The other person felt something shift. They started making decisions from a different place. Wealth building doesn't start when you hit a certain income threshold. It doesn't start when you finally have enough left over to invest. It starts the moment you begin to see yourself as an owner. Not someday, not eventually, now with whatever you currently have. Because the owner mentality changes how you see every dollar. It changes what a purchase feels like. It changes your relationship with risk. It changes your time horizon, which might be the single most powerful variable in personal finance. When you see yourself as an earner, money flows in and flows out, and the goal is to manage that flow. When you see yourself as an owner, money becomes material, something you build with, not just something you earn and spend. That shift in identity is not a small thing. It is, in many ways, the entire thing. Because behaviors follow beliefs. And if the belief at the foundation is still, I am someone who earns and spends, no budgeting app, no side hustle, no financial literacy course is going to move the needle in any meaningful, lasting way. The numbers are the last thing that changes. The identity is the first. So let's bring it all together. Because there's a tension that runs through everything we've talked about, and if we don't address it directly, it becomes an escape hatch, a way to hear all of this and still do nothing. The tension is this. Some of what keeps people from building wealth is systemic, structural, real, because wages that haven't kept pace with the cost of living. Wealth that compounds faster for people who already have it. Access to financial education that is not distributed equally. These are not excuses. They are facts, and anyone who talks about wealth without acknowledging them is selling you a fantasy. But here's the other side of that truth. Within your actual life, with the income you have, the decisions you face, the habits you're running, there is room to move. There is space where your choices matter enormously. And if you use systemic factors to explain away everything in that space, you are giving up the only leverage you actually have. The clearest thinking holds both at once. Yes, the system makes this harder than it needs to be. And yes, there are still decisions inside your life that will determine your outcome. Neither one cancels the other out. The people who make real progress tend to be completely clear-eyed about both. So let's recap what we actually covered here, cleanly and without flinching. Most people will never be rich, not because they don't work hard enough. They do, but because income and wealth are not the same thing, and almost nobody teaches you the difference. Because lifestyle inflation is designed to absorb every raise, every bonus, every breakthrough, before it has a chance to compound into something. Because the financial decisions most people make are driven not by strategy, but by identity, by what money signals about who they are, rather than what money can build. And because the question most people are asking, how do I earn more, is the wrong question. The right question is, how does wealth actually accumulate, structurally, over time? And am I positioned anywhere near that process? That's the summary. 4 decades of financial stagnation for millions of people, reduced to its real causes. And now, 4 shifts that actually change the trajectory. The first mind shift is this. Stop chasing income and start chasing assets and ownership. Income is what you earn. Assets are what earn for you. The wealthy are not, as a group, the highest paid people in the room. They are the people with the highest ownership stakes in businesses, in property, in investments that generate returns while they sleep. The move is not necessarily dramatic. It might start with a small investment account, a stake in something, a decision to redirect a portion of every paycheck towards something that can grow rather than something that gets consumed. The mindset shift is from earning more to owning more. That one reframe changes almost every financial decision you make afterward. The second mind shift, stop upgrading your lifestyle by default and learn to protect the gap. The gap between what you earn and what you spend is where wealth is born. Lifestyle inflation doesn't just keep you in place. It quietly closes the only window that wealth creation requires. Every time your income goes up, you face a choice. Most people don't even realize they're making one. The habit is to let the lifestyle expand to fill the new space. The shift is to make a deliberate decision about that gap before the lifestyle has a chance to absorb it. This is not about deprivation. It's about intentionality. The question is not whether you can afford the upgrade. The question is whether the upgrade is the best possible use of that new capacity. The third mind shift, stop making money decisions from identity and security and start building from long-term self-respect. This one goes deep. A huge percentage of the spending that derails wealth building is not actually about the thing being purchased. It's about what the purchase communicates to other people and to yourself. Status anxiety is one of the most expensive forces in personal finance, and it operates almost entirely below conscious awareness. The shift is not to stop caring about how you're perceived. It's to ground your financial decisions in a longer, quieter sense of self-respect, the kind that comes from building something real, not from displaying something expensive. When you buy from that place, everything looks different. The purchase that once felt necessary starts to feel hollow, and the investment that once felt boring starts to feel like exactly what it is, a vote for the future version of you. The fourth mind shift: stop asking how rich people spend and start asking how wealth is structurally built. This is a media and culture problem. What gets shown, celebrated, and talked about is consumption. The cars, the houses, the vacations, the lifestyle. What doesn't get shown is the ownership structure underneath, the holding companies, the diversified assets, the compounding that has been running quietly for 10 or 20 years before the visible wealth appeared. The real question is never what do wealthy people buy. It's what did they build, and how, and when did they start? That question leads you to entirely different answers, and different answers lead to different decisions, 4 shifts, 1 direction, and a version of your financial life that looks different, not because you earned more, but because you started thinking about money in a fundamentally different way. If any part of this conversation landed, the best thing you can do right now is stay in it. Subscribe, because this is what we do here. Cut through the noise and talk about money, psychology, and wealth the way they actually work. The information exists. The question is whether you'll let it change the identity that receives it. That part is entirely up to you.